Welcome to worship in the Unitarian Universalist Church of Charlotte. Welcome to our guests, and welcome to our members. The majestic Nobel Prize-winning Bengali Rabindranath Tagore, poet, playwright, essayist, composer, painter, scientific thinker, spiritual writer, developed an immensely expansive worldview. In his famous Gitanjali, he expresses that perspective, affirming, the same stream of life that runs through my veins night and day runs through the world and dances in rhythmic measures. It is the same life that shoots in joy through the dust of the earth, in numberless blades of grass, and breaks into tumultuous waves of leaves and flowers. It is the same life that is rocked in the ocean cradle of birth and of death, in ebb and in flow. What if that were actually true? What if it is the very same force of life that is animating all that is? And what if we actually lived as if that were true? As if the same stream of life that runs through my veins night and day runs through the world, the whole world. May today's service awaken us to new implications of that way of living our lives.
The chalice lighting words this morning are by May Sarton. Help us to be the always hopeful gardeners of the Spirit, who know that without darkness, nothing comes to birth, as without light, nothing flowers. Our first reading this morning is The Earth is a Living Thing from Collected Poems by Lucille Clifton. The earth is a living thing, is a black shambling bear ruffling its wild back and tossing mountains into the sea, is a black hawk circling the burying ground, circling the bones, picked clean and discarded, is a fish, black blind in the belly of water, is a diamond, blind in the black belly of coal, is a black and living thing, is a favorite child of the universe. Feel her rolling her hand in its kinky hair. Feel her brushing it clean.
You can look to the stars in search of the answers. Look for God and life on distant planets. Have your faith in the ever after, while each of us holds inside a map to the labyrinth. And heaven's here on earth. We are the spirit, the collective conscience. We create the pain and the suffering and the beauty in this world. Heaven's here on earth. In our faith in humankind, in our respect for what is earthly, in our unfaltering belief, in peace and love and understanding. I've seen him at angels wearing the disguise of ordinary people leading ordinary lives filled with love, compassion, forgiveness, and sacrifice. Heaven's in our hearts, in our faith in humankind, in our respect for what is earthly, in our unfaltering belief, in peace and love and understanding. Look around, believe in what you see. The kingdom is at hand, the promised land is at your feet. We can and will become what we aspire to be. If heaven's here on earth, if we have faith in humankind and respect for what is earthly, and an unfaltering belief that truth is divinity, and heaven's here on earth. I've seen spirits, I've met angels, I've touched creations, beautiful and wondrous. I've been places where I question all I think I know. I believe, I believe, I believe this could be heaven. We are born inside the gates with the power to create life and to take it away. The world is our temple, the world is our church. Heaven's here on earth. If we have faith in humankind and respect for what is earthly and an unfaltering belief in peace and love and understanding, this could be heaven's here on earth.
Thank you, Alex. So Alex is going to slip out in a second to go to our middle school celebration. Right? Amazing. Thank you so much. Our second reading is by the young African-American poet Clint Smith. He's a native of New Orleans, finishing his doctorate now at Harvard. This collection, Counting Descent, is getting such attention. I think you'll understand why when you hear The Hardest Days. Some evenings, after days when it feels the world has poured all its despair onto me, when I am awash with burdens that rest atop my body like a burlap of jostling shadows, I find a place to watch the sun set. I dig my feet into a soil that has rebirthed itself 1,000,000 times over. I listen to the sound of leaves as they decide whether or not it is time to descend from their branches. It is hard to describe the comfort one feels in sitting with something you can trust will always be there. Something you can count on to remain familiar when all else goes awry. How remarkable it is to know that so many have watched the same sun set before you. How the wind can carry pollen and drop it somewhere it has never been. How the leaves have always become soil that then become leaves again. How maybe we're not so different from the leaves. How maybe we are also always being reborn to be something more than we once were. How maybe that's what waking up each morning is. A reminder that we are born of the same atoms as every plant and bird and mountain and ocean around us. I invite us to remain seated for the song. There's a little winding Texas hill country highway that makes its way north toward Canyon Lake out of the historic town of Brune, pronounced green in the Lone Star State. This two-lane blacktop cuts through craggy limestone hills, their thin soil layer rugged with rocks, boulders, yucca, various cacti, juniper, and, especially after spring rains, outcroppings of wildflowers. On occasional weekend getaways, I'd accompany a man I loved west out of the frenetic urban sprawl of Houston to a spacious canyon-side home just off that winding road, with a broad expanse of windows and a wide deck overlooking a deep ravine. After a day that started with a long run across the Canyon Lake Dam and continued with treks in and around various little hill country towns and their environs, we'd return, prepare and eat sumptuous plates of pasta, then retreat to low-slung canvas deck chairs to watch the surrounding hills shimmer in that golden hour just before dusk. As the last of the light waned, the wide, wide Texas sky would darken, and removed entirely from all polluting light, we'd lean back and gaze up silently into a celestial spectacle. A light breeze stirring up out of the ravine, its hushed susurration a backdrop for other night noises. The pitch blackness obscuring all obstructions. Alongside someone so dear to me, I recall on more than one occasion a feeling of utter lightheaded boundlessness. The two of us, the creatures stirring in the underbrush, the scrubby plants and pungent prickly juniper, the rocks and hills, the breeze, the vast dome overhead, pinholed by countless shimmering, twinkling lights. It felt as if it was all, as if we were all one immense, entwined, animated whole. In a December 5, 1927 letter to his friend Sigmund Freud, the French writer and art historian Romain Rolland tried to put such an experience into words. He described it as a spontaneous religious feeling, or more exactly, religious sensation. It was, Rolland said, quite independent of all dogma, of all credo, of every church organization, of every holy book, of all hope in a personal survival. Unfiltered, unadulterated by these sectarian concerns, such experiences offer, he said, the simple and direct fact of the sensation of the eternal. It was in this missive from Rolland to Freud that Rolland first coined a term Freud would adopt and then adapt. Times of boundlessness offer, he wrote, an oceanic feeling. Oceanic. And much the way we here will often sing, the wide universe is the ocean I travel. One vast, unified expanse, inspiring awe and wonder. Contemporary Australian environmental philosopher Glenn Albrecht has coined another term for that same sensation, combining the root EU, meaning good, with one of the words for earth, terra. Albrecht writes and speaks about euteria, hinting at something not unlike euphoria. Euteria refers to, he says, a positive feeling of oneness with the earth and its life forces. What I was feeling out on that Texas Hill Country deck at night, what you might have felt listening to the ocean's rushing and retreating roar, or gazing out at an undulating range of blue ridges receding into the distance. What someone else might sense identifying a particular bird by its call, or simply breathing in the intoxicatingly sweet scent of a milky white gardenia on a sultry southern summer evening. What all of these experiences, these sensations can offer is boundlessness, a spontaneous religious sensation, an oceanic feeling, euteria. Our religious forebear, Ralph Waldo Emerson, had another word for it. We see the world piece by piece, he writes, as the sun, the moon, the animal, the tree, but the whole, of which each of these are shining parts, is the soul. We live in succession and divisions and parts and particles, admits Emerson. Meanwhile, within us is the soul of the whole. Soul. When Emerson uses that word soul, he's not referring to some separate part of us wherein resides some spiritual impulse. Given his agnosticism about the afterlife, he's not thinking about some ethereal, eternal part of us, a dream that comes true in an unseen paradisiacal realm after we shuffle off this mortal coil. We don't have a soul. Rather, along with, he writes, every part and particle, we are soul. We are, everything is animated by soul, the wise silence, the universal beauty, the eternal one. Importantly, actually, essentially, he writes that such experiences point to an immensity not possessed and that cannot be possessed. Such a notion is at best an aberration, and perhaps even an offense in our society as it is currently ordered. We can hardly even conceive of an overarching worldview that is more attentive to the whole than it is to the parts, that places higher value on the collective than on the right of individuals to do, say, believe, buy, invest in what each wants. Not possessed, and that cannot be possessed. Now, if you're trying to scrape together, say, a couple of $1 billion to buy yourself a sports team, you need to show something on the ledger sheet that can be possessed. How much do you have? What is your net worth? And for us mere funders of such fortunate ones, the scale is quite different, while the way of thinking remarkably similar. It's the conceit of individualism. Imagining oneself as separate, able to act, to decide, to acquire, to possess for one's self. The conceit, born of a Western European mindset, suckled on capitalism's glorious promises, fed on too many Lone Ranger stories. It reduces the majesty of boundlessness, the awe-inspiring sensation of the oceanic, the wonder of UT area, the majesty of soul down to me, to mine, my perspective, valuable simply because I say so. My actions, about which you should not care. My privilege to act in independent isolation. And if there is such a thing, a defining thing as me and mine, then there's also the reality of us and them, of ours and theirs. Our city, onto which we can impose our own oxymoronic definition of diversity, and where they, well, at least not so many of them, shouldn't be in leadership. Our state, through which we can run a risky pipeline, in which we can foreclose on renewable energy, off whose shores we can engage in risky drilling, all so that our corporate friends will continue to monopolize profit, regardless of how that might impact their lives or their habitat or their well-being. Our country, wherein all the right people speak English, and where some of them would dare to come without papers, proving them to be what we've suspected them to be: animals. Our land, given to us by our God in our holy book, and our borders, across which our snipers can shoot their kids with impunity in the name of making us safer and more secure. Such a view of things is challenged by those experiences, those sensations, those awarenesses of boundlessness. The oceanic, UT area, soul. When we slow down, when we pause to notice, when we step away from the frenetic, when we enter into the depths of life, we're reminded of something far more momentous and far truer than me and mine and us and ours. It is there that we are given the gift of experiencing again, as Wordsworth put it, a sense sublime of something far more deeply interfused. Gerald Barrack Sr. warns, but it's when you don't care about the world that you begin owning and destroying it. When we lose sight, lose focus, lose perspective, then we begin thinking in parts and in particles, in terms of what is mine. Clint Smith admits his own need on those days when the world feels like it has poured all its despair onto me. He seeks out some place to watch the sunset, some place where he can dig his feet into the soil and listen to something as simple as the sound of leaves. There, in such settings, it comes back to him. A reminder that we are born of the same atoms as every plant and bird and mountain and ocean around us. Born of the same atoms. It's another way of saying that we share together in one soul. Now, this part we know, at least at some level. We have known, and we have in varying ways and with varying degrees of regularity, we've actually attended to. That is, we've understood how attention to the natural world can bring us back to a healthier and more holistic perspective, one less interested in grasping and grabbing, and more gratefully aware of the grace that underlies it all. But our concern for environmental justice is challenging us to think in an even more boundless way. Too often, nature has served as the escape for the privileged, who have directed their environmental concerns primarily to the preservation of wild places. The call of environmental justice is not to set that aside, is not to no longer appreciate or care for those places of respite and restoration. The summons of environmental justice is to understand that all of us, truly all of us, are born of the same atoms. We share in the same immense soul. We swim in the same oceanic experience, the only one there is. We are learning here, slowly, to direct our concerns not just to the preservation of the pretty places on the planet, but also to those who suffer unduly the plight of our collective environmental abuse. Those who cannot see a star-lit sky through the belching haze of industrial discharge. Those who do not hear the soothing sound of water, but rather the rank rush of befouled rivers. Those who do not smell the sweet scent of blooms and of blossoms, but who endure the stench of nearby factory farms. You see, they too are born of the same atoms as every plant and bird and mountain and ocean around us. They are us, and we are them. The same life. The same life that runs through your veins and through my veins, night and day, runs through the world and through them. The message is still in the boundless, still in the oceanic, the area, the soul of the whole, if we will listen ever more carefully, if we will look ever more attentively, if we will open ourselves ever more expansively, we will come to understand ever more deeply our role in honoring it all, us all. For such times remind us, though we may see in parts and in particles. The whole is in the soul. May it be so. May it be so.
Good morning. My name is Judy Love. Welcome to today's service. We're honored to have guests with us. Our members would like to greet you following the service. So that we might do so, if you are visiting, please raise your hand and keep it up. Members, please take note of the guests seated near you. After the service, invite them to join you for coffee and conversation in Freeman Hall. Should it enhance your experience of future services, you can find both a large print order of service and a personal hearing assistance device on the table at the entrance to the sanctuary. If you'd like to learn more about us, please fill out a yellow card and place your completed card in an offering basket as it is passed later in the service. Members with a life event to share can do so on the reverse side of the card. You'll find them along with offering envelopes on the clipboards at the end of the row. Please begin passing them down your row now. Some returning visitors may be interested in hearing about how to become a member. If so, you can talk to our membership coordinator, Kelly Green, waving at the back there. Her contact information is on the back of your order. Again, to each of you, welcome. If I were asked to describe my religious upbringing, I would have to say that my family attended the Church of Nature. And I learned early on that there is no better calling than protecting the land. And so, reflecting on my time on this earth, I realize that I have experienced what I can only describe as religious ecstasy while in nature, when the heart thrums with joy, with tears, with wonder. Of course, besides these transporting events, there have been myriad cherished, intimate moments as well. Waking to the heavenly dawn chorus of echoing hermit thrushes, and melodious mockingbirds. Thrilling at the magic of flickering fireflies in the early dusk. Cringing from squadrons of huge dragonflies zooming in formation 3 feet above a newly mown field. Glimpsing a hummingbird sipping from a trumpet honeysuckle, or an impossibly yellow goldfinch alighting on the rim of the bird bath. I have dreamed worlds in the reflections on a still lake and seen each puddle as a window to that world. Studied silent still lifes through black ice. Wondered at the meaning of the shimmering calligraphy left by a garden slug during the night. I have swum in the phosphorescence in the swells off Nantucket Island and reveled at the glowworms under silver tree ferns in New Zealand. Meteor showers are nocturnal rituals. Thunderstorms are theater. Rainbows are giddy gifts. There's the hushed reverence of new fallen snow, the cut diamond brilliance of an ice storm, the mystery of swirling fog and morning mist. Every day, the sun rises with brilliant expectation and sets in fiery glory. The moon tracks across a star-studded sky in ever-changing proportions. If I have regrets when I die, it will be that I did not take time to witness it all. And so, as a follower of this nature sect, I garden, and I strive to be a guardian of the earth, for I can relate to what is written in today's epigraph, taken from John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath. One time, he went out in the wilderness to find his own soul, and he found he didn't have no soul that was his'n. Says he found he just got a little piece of a great big soul. And so, standing at the edge of the ocean, approaching the huge craggy rocks as if to an altar, hairy with seaweed and crusty with toothy barnacles that plunge into the surf, I understand my insignificance. And yet, I also feel wonderfully connected to it all, a little piece of that great big soul.
What a treat to get to hear that for a second time this morning. Wow. Makes me wish we did 3 services. So it occurred to me in the context of this service that we have a group that is working very hard here to shift pronouns. They're trying to change my and mine into ours. And in that regard, I recognize the chair of this group, and Das Helms, who chairs our stewardship team.
So last weekend, we celebrated a coming-of-age class that I am told is the largest we've ever had in the history of our congregation. How many of you were part of that in some way? I did not take part this year, but I have done so several years in the past. And as all of us who have been part of that know, there is just no more splendid symbol of our investment in the future. We're coming to the end of our first year of year-round pledging. And when the currents came in, I clicked through to our proposed budget. If you haven't done that, I would encourage you to do so in preparation for our June 3rd congregational conversation. And I was thrilled to see that we are on target to close the $34,000 deficit that we approved when we started this budget year that's coming to a close. We owe a lot of thank yous for that. I would like to thank new members who have done a really good job of stepping into an ownership role just as soon as they sign up. I'd like to thank current members who have increased their pledges, and just everyone who is making a serious commitment to our congregation, whatever that looks like in your budget. I'm also thrilled to see that we are budgeting for long overdue staff raises for the coming year. And that is a wonderful thing. Of course, you also know what that means. All of us who have the ability will need to embrace the opportunity to do even more as we move ahead. When I arrived here in the mid-90s, I was the beneficiary of almost 50 years of support from people who came before me and made this place a reality. Today, I am honored to be among the members who are making this place a reality, not just for me here now, but for all of the young people who will lead us into the future. So if your pledge month is May, you know what to do. We will have a stewardship table over there. We can take a paper card from you. You can do it electronically. If it's not your month, but you've realized that you can increase your pledge, we will not make you wait till your next cycle. We will take that increase whenever you are able and willing to give it. Remember that we strive for 5% of our household income to support our community here. Many members are doing that. If all of us could, we would be in a very strong position to, in the words of our proposed new mission statement, discover deeper spiritual meaning, nurture loving community, cultivate courageous connections, and partner in the work of justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann, and members of our stewardship team. As Ann mentioned, and as members should know already, our congregational conversation is coming up on Sunday, June 3rd. There is information in Currents about this. The board is also available for conversation to talk with you about how to get a meal on that day, and also about how, if necessary, to cast an absentee ballot. Part of our sense of connection is one of concern. We hold with love and in our prayers Gloria Kuchminski. Gloria, longtime member of this congregation, who is now under the care of hospice. Others in this congregation whose needs are known to us or who carry burdens of care and concern in silence. We sadly hold another grieving community of students, and teachers, and parents now in South Texas. We hold in support and in admiration teachers and advocates for public education in the state and around the country, striving for the best for our children. Today marks some special occasion of joy, of concern, of remembrance, of hope for you. You're invited to come forward, member, visitor alike, in silence to light a candle while the music is played during the time in which we pass our offering baskets. Invite us to a time of meditation and aspiration, the opportunity to breathe deeply together. For just this moment, I invite you to settle more deeply into this space, into this time, to let go of anything you may be holding that would distract you. to feel yourself upheld and grounded, rooted in the solidity of the earth. To slow your breath, breathing in more deeply, exhaling more slowly. Oh, life. Oh, majestic force animating all that is. In the coursing of our veins is your stream, surging through us, pulsing in a hearty thump-thump, thump-thump, thump-thump. In each expansion of our lungs, we draw in a new breath of vitality. Each one newly inspiring us in that carefully ordered back and forth between plant and animal, giving and taking as appointed. For the conceit of imagining ourselves apart from rather than a part of, may life in all her forms find forgiveness for us. For deluding ourselves with the illusion that we are separate, self-made. May life in all her forms disillusion us. For any ism that values the part or the particle over the whole, for any ism that engages in the arrogance of professed superiority, for any ism that elevates our species onto some destructive pedestal at the expense of other species and to the detriment of our planet. May life in its boundlessness bring us back to what is true. Blessed Gaia, Mother of us all, may we look, listen, sense, feel, think, reflect, act with deeper awareness and deeper attention. And may we often, in the complex, engaging, robust, inspiring rhythm of life, find heaven here on earth. Blessed be.
That was amazing. The offering words today are by Brandick L. Lovely. Let there be an offering to sustain and strengthen this place, which is sacred to so many of us, a community of memory and of hope, for we are now the keepers of the dream. The ushers may now come forward. Please join me in an affirmation of our faith, rising in body and/or spirit. All living substance
We're always delighted when our kids return to this place, when kids come back from college, some more loudly than others. Olivia, welcome back to this space. What a treat to hear you today. I've been away at one of the finest Music schools in the country, got to be proud, Papa. Thank you for sharing your gifts with us again today. We think in parts and in particles, as the sun, the moon, the mountain, the ocean, this bird, this plant, this snail, this slug. Meanwhile, the real truth is about the soul of the whole, the animating force, the Euteria, the oceanic. Let us go living more intentionally in relationship to all of it. Please be seated.